Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Sports Hub podcast. You'll see that Bruce and Mitchell aren't here this evening. Bob obviously isn't here. But Bruce isn't here because of some good news. He drove up to St Andrews today with a girlfriend and drove back with a fiancée, which is absolutely fantastic news. So congratulations.
Good news?
Well, there is a slight frustration within me though, because I lived in St Andrews for 4 years and left as a single man. Bruce goes up for a day and comes back with a fiancée. So there you go. But Mitchell doesn't have an excuse. He says that he has other plans in the diary, even though we record this on the same day at the same time. How hard is it to put a date in the diary, Mitchell? Oh, so infuriating. And because Bruce isn't here, I've came up with an acronym for the podcast tonight. ALANA, all laughing and never argument. But another reason for that is because of the topic that we're about to discuss, the European Super League, where 11 super clubs and Arsenal decided to create a league of their own. So I'm going to hand over to Gavin to talk more about that and to start the conversation.
Thank you, James. So yeah, as you've just said, we discussed it a little bit last week with the round table. But some of Europe's biggest clubs deciding to break away from their leagues. You said and Arsenal. I think a lot of people would go as far as saying that Arsenal and Spurs, considering that they mucked up another chance to win silverware today, which you weren't going to mention, were you? But so a big week from that side of things. A lot of arguments, discussions, points of view from both sides getting thrown about, and at the end of the day, it lasted just over 48 hours before all the English teams pulled out, and then after that, the Spanish and Italian teams were soon to follow. I think I just want to see everyone's thoughts on it and whether people agree or disagree. I know we've kind of spoke about it here and there, but we've never properly spoke about it out in the open about the benefits or the about it in first place or anything we don't agree with. More importantly, I know like James and Martin, you shared some of your views last week, but Shahan, you weren't there last week, so what were your views on it?
Totally against it. Like literally taking the football away from fans and never and made it all about money, and it's just not good enough. Obviously, like football is like a I don't know, like a religion almost in UK especially, and fans have made it that way. And if you're taking football away from fans essentially, just for money, it's just not good enough.
James, one of the, I'm sorry, I need to go, Martin.
I would argue the fact that it's not the first time it's happened. I mean, in '92, they created the Premier League and took it away from fans to a degree because they had subscriptions to Sky when football was played on a Saturday at 3:00, unless it was on TV. And if it was on TV, it was on a free channel that everybody could watch. Football was accessible to everybody. And now it's on Sky where you've got to pay a subscription. And that was in '92. Now you've got Sky, Premier Sports, BT Sports, Amazon Prime. That's all done for money. It's not. Mm-hmm. This isn't for the sake of the fans. It's not the first time it'll happen with football. It's not the last time it's happened with football.
James, from a Spurs point of view, in terms of being a follower of Spurs for your life and knowing that your team was a part of these plans, what was your thoughts on it when the announcement was made and then the aftermath that followed on Monday and Tuesday evening?
It makes the decisions made by the club make sense. A new stadium worth £1 billion, getting Mourinho in, big name manager, getting Bale back on loan despite not performing for Real Madrid in previous seasons, high reputation players to brand itself as a club worthy of being in this league. And the cost of all those appointments and stadium would be justified with the income that would come through this league. But from a fan's perspective, it's not why I follow Tottenham. I follow Tottenham so they can attempt and never win trophies. But I want to see Tottenham play in the English league. They're an English team, and I want them to perform well to earn the right to play in European football and to represent English football. So, yeah, it was very disappointing, but at the same time, not surprised. Daniel Levy's very money orientated, and I guess if you're a shareholder and try and take the business point of view, it was probably too good to refuse. If you were trying to just make the purely economic case for it. But would it have actually been as economic without any fans backing? I'm not sure.
Of course, what we've seen a lot from since, the breakaway six has been called after being called the Big Six, that there's been a lot of hate on them, fan protests, the other teams in the league protesting against their decisions and having meetings about it and such. And we've also seen a lot of the hierarchy having to suffer. So Woodward, his resignation, is it Henry from Liverpool coming on camera and issuing an apology. We've had the Arsenal board coming and issuing an apology. The fans weren't happy that wasn't Stan Kroenke specifically. Abramovich from Chelsea. We've had all these big names coming and issuing apologies. What I find interesting is that I've not seen in particular apologies to the other teams, considering the outrage that was across the rest of the 14 in the league. Does anyone have any opinions on that?
Well, I think it is a little bit insulting to the other teams that basically we are this super team worthy of a super league, and
Especially
you're
Spurs.
not, and Arsenal. But the notion of we are too good for you, we should be playing the likes of Barcelona and Juventus every week, not Aston Villa, not Everton, not Newcastle. They are very big teams in their own regard and should be seen as big teams. But this was just total disregard for them, disregard for the history of English football, the culture of English football, and for the fans. And it was money driven to turn European football into a US NFL type of business where the brand looks after itself and you can't be too bad to fail because you'll never
Martin.
get relegated.
Martin, you were shaking your head there at James's point there. Can you elaborate on your head shake?
I'll go back to the 1992 one. It wasn't done for the fans. It was done to bring more money in and revenue in. And at every point, the people who have moaned about this the most, I mean, Sky put something out against it because they'd lose money. BT put something out against it because they'd lose money. All the other clubs put something out against it because they're losing money.
So what would it get
Again,
shown on?
it's back to another. Well, to be honest, it'd get shown worldwide. It'd be any. They'd either be able to make up their own broadcast channel, or they sell it to the highest bidder, and they sell it to the highest bidder in every single country, and it would make money. There would still be watched. People will still pay to watch it because you pay to watch Sky, BT, and everything else. But it's another subscription to go on top of it. The biggest problem with it was the American style no relegation, and to be honest, that's probably my only issue with it. If they it's been talked about for years, this Super League, so it's not as if it's just popped out of nowhere. It's been talked about for the past 10, 15 years, easy, that it's been a possibility of happening. All the big teams playing each other week in, week out. The big teams have never been happy about finishing 5th, 6th, and not getting in the Champions League the next year. So there was always going to be an opportunity for all the big teams to be playing all the big teams constantly. They've been talking about it for years. Their marketing team was shocking. I mean, putting something out last thing at night, a statement saying all these teams are leaving, and then saying nothing else about it. No big drum roll, no big explanation of what it was. It was just right. We're all doing this. Then UEFA comes against it, and I've never had a good word to say about UEFA. And I can understand teams wanting to leave another brand. Basically, UEFA and FIFA control every type of football, and they've been proved to be corrupt in certain circumstances. There isn't an option but to go with them, though. So Perez goes and starts his own foundation, basically, because they're saying UEFA had said for months and weeks that they, when it did come out, that UEFA would be nothing to do with it. So this was their chance to get away from UEFA and FIFA.
You mentioned UEFA, and UEFA, people say that they've done a good job the past week calling out the Super League, but they've passed Champions League reforms, which are more elitist. It means that if Manchester United finish 6th in the Premier League, but West Ham finish 4th, Man U qualify for the Champions League because they've got the higher coefficient. That is just totally wrong. And again, it further excludes teams from smaller nations. So UEFA have actually passed measures, not to the extent of the Super League, but they've passed measures with similar motivation, whilst calling those motivations out. So UEFA have shown themselves to be hypocritical, money-orientated, and not really interested in smaller teams, but we could have told you that 20 years ago.
I think what I've took away from all of this is the so-called Big Six. It's like Europeans elite. How many European trophies have Arsenal won? How many European trophies has Man City won? How many European trophies have Spurs won? Yeah, granted, Arsenal appeared in finals. You know what I mean? But
So if
when you
Spurs,
look at it,
One.
when you look at it though, it's
Finals.
you've got Liverpool based on their history, Manchester United based on their history, teams like Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Spurs is based on their money just now and their income and how much attraction that they bring overseas, especially in Asia. I think Graham Souness that said that they were targeting the Asian market, and that'll be the biggest area.
I mean, it's not the first time a team's targeted the Asian market. I mean, Celtic done extremely well when they brought in Shinsuke Nakamura, and the amount of money they made from him, not just selling tops over there, which they made a lot. They also sell TV rights over there because people want to watch games just because Nakamura was playing. There's a massive market there to make money in. And Man United done the same way, Ji-Sung Park. And if you can get a top Asian player like that to play in your team, you're automatically going to make money out of it for that. It's what line you draw somewhere where it's a business and it's a football club. That's the line in the sand's got to be somewhere, and obviously the league that's formed, the ideas on that league was just far too close to being a business and too far away from being a football club.
Who do we think is the top six in Premier League? But
Well,
they're
Leicester's
saying
in
all
there.
these teams. Exactly. You've got to, considering how consistent Leicester's been, I'd say Leicester's up there. West Ham have done really well this season and showed that they can compete at a high level. Are they top six material at the moment? They've not showed it enough. They need to do it next year and the year after before they can be classed as top six, I think.
Yeah, I think they need a little bit of a kind of history behind them. Like this year's like the kind of first year they've started to show that they're a good team. So
I'll go back to my 1992 comments with the Premier League starts. There were 5 teams that pushed for the Premier League to change from the old Division 1. And Everton were one of the teams. Man City weren't. Man City weren't anywhere near the size they are now. Chelsea weren't anywhere near the size they are now. Tottenham weren't the size they are now. These teams change on levels throughout the course of years. I mean, if these teams were to go to the Super League, yes, they'd get more money, but it was just because it happened at this point in time.
I think that's
Liverpool 4 or 5 years ago, they were still struggling, until Klopp came in, or Brendan Rodgers maybe.
But what you said about the Premier League being the first initial transformation in football that's money orientated, of course money was involved in the creation of the Premier League, but at least it was consistent with the roots of how football operated, which were domestic leagues, where you play on merit, and if you play well, you qualify to represent England on the European stage. That's how football traditionally operates in this European Super League was a break from that, and it didn't understand the culture of football in England and within most of continental Europe. And the fact that it was rewarding teams for having big turnovers rather than merit was what was controversial, as well as the fact you couldn't get relegated. So
Like-
it ripped the fabric of football, and I think that's why the fans were so opposed from it.
I completely agree with that. Sorry, Sharon, you go.
No, on you go, Martin. No.
I completely agree with that. Mostly, I saw I see it as a first bid, right? I don't see it as over. I think there's no way this has been agreed over a half-hour coffee in the morning and we'll go post this. They spent a lot of time, a lot of money putting into this, and they've managed to get big companies to put big money in. And as Perez still says, they've signed a contract, so they still have to get themselves out of a contract. This was phase one. This is like when you go to buy a car and you look at the car and you think that's worth 10 grand. Okay, what I'm going to do? I'm going to bid 5 grand. See what he's going to do. This was a tipping, put your foot in the water. See what everybody says. It was a massive what everybody's came out. I mean the fans are massively against this, or at least the ones out. But I didn't see it being over. They now have information from fans of what they want, what they don't want. So they'll see, right, a relegation is an issue. What can we do to stop that? Let's put some sort of relegation in there, and then they'll have to deal with UEFA. But they will not. That will only be the end of it. They're going to go back to the drawing board and look at it and see what else they can do to make it work. Because it's too much money not to.
I just think like the way they came out like so randomly and so like abruptly, I think that's what kind of took everybody by surprise and turned everybody against it. I think they should have consulted like their fans or even their players and teams. You know what I mean? Like the managers, like not even telling your managers and your players. I think that is the most shocking fact to me. Like that, 6 or 12 people and like your board from the highest point on your board have just sat together on Zoom over a cup of coffee and discussed a European Super League, without speaking to their teams, their clubs.
The fact that there was no marketing done whatsoever, Ken, it wasn't a big fanfare to say, right, this is what's happening, this is evolutionary football, this is where we're going, you're going to get this game, and this game, this is how we're going to do it. And Ken, a proper marketing scheme for it to say, right, this is what we're doing, as opposed to a statement coming out saying, aye, we're all joining the league. Aye, what do you think? And it was just shocking.
Yeah.
I also don't know if it's as appealing as people or as they try to make out. We talk about like Europa League draws, Champions League draws, and how, if you're an Arsenal fan, we're playing Olympiacos again. The point of European football is to play different teams, to travel different places. What's the appeal of playing the same teams the same week or the same season with no threat of relegation to go and experience new places? It just ruins the fan experience, and I actually think fans would be disengaged by it. Why would you want to play Barcelona 4 times a season, 2 trips abroad, and have that every year for eternity, essentially? I don't see the appeal in that.
I think that's my biggest thing in that, James, is that it takes away the whole special ties that you get. So
I still watch Man U Liverpool every time they play.
But yeah, it's one of those things. It's a domestic league. In terms of European games, it's the one-off ties. You know, when Celtic drew Barcelona, I bet you James was buzzing to go and watch his team against the Spanish giants, European giants. It's
the first time, but the third time, not so much. Because we drew them in 2012, and then we drew them again in 2014, and then 2015, if I remember the dates correctly. And you're like, why is it Barcelona? Why can it not be Real Madrid or Dortmund or maybe had Munich? But you know what I mean. Why can it just not be
if you get a tie
team?
for a PSG or get one of these big European teams that you don't face often? So as James is saying, the league makes it will get boring after a while when you are like, well, the last 3 times we lost, we're not gonna win this time, especially as a Spurs fan.
Yeah, and that's the point. The European competition is it's unique in the terms it is knockout in the later stages, so you do get different ties, and it is a little bit more special in that regard. Whereas if you know that you're going to be playing the same teams every season, it takes that out of it. There's no freshness about it. There's no uniqueness about it. Why would you get excited about playing the same teams again, particularly if you're not going to win it?
Definitely. I think from just this wee talk, gauging the reaction, I feel like Shahan's dead against it. James, I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like you're
definitely.
against it, but you've got a wee bit of to and fro where you can see why it's been done. And I feel like, Martin, you're probably more for it out of everyone here, with the odd improvement here and there needed to be done for it to be a success.
On the current scale of the what they put out, it's not happening. Okay, there was too many people against it. It was never going to happen. It doesn't mean it's over. You still have to see what they came out with. I mean, they would have to figure out what teams would be involved. If there is a right, you're in, you're out, so there's new teams playing. And if that's the case, you then have to have some sort of understanding with UEFA, or otherwise it's a complete breakaway, and you have a European league of 4 or 5 different leagues that you can promote yourself and relegate yourself from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot to actually take from it. It was always going to be talked about. It has been talked about for years. I mean, before the Champions League, when it was the Cup Winners' Cup. I mean, again, that was another one that the Champions League, the Cup Winners' Cup, changed to the Champions League for money, for revenue. Yes, it's turned into a great footballing aspect, but kind of a 4th team in the league playing to win the Champions League when they've not even won their own league. That was never the case before. They changed that for money. Again, football, all these big companies, they do it for money.
Okay, I think before we wrap up with this, the 2 big questions that I've got to ask everyone is, the first one, do we think that the fan reaction of the Big Six during the protests and such, do we think that that was justified? And the second question being, do we think that this is something that will go ahead? Either it be as its own breakaway league, or as James was saying, some sort of European competition reform that may possibly happen. I'm going to go to Shahan first because he wasn't on last week.
So I think the way kind of the news was broke out to the fans, their reactions are totally justified. I think we all had that kind of reaction as well in our chats and the way we spoke about it as well. And then for the second question, I think this thing is not done with yet. Like there will be some sort of a reform or a rebuild of this full league essentially. And as Martin said, it might come like as like a kind of relegation system or whatever else. But I think that is something they'll now look to do.
Martin, as being a football coach as well, take it from that point of view, who likes to try and promote youth development as well. So from your point of view, from that side of things, take away the fan aspect, what do you think about the questions that I've asked?
The fans were justified in what they've done. The marketing was shocking. To be chucked with that on your doorstep when you had no communication, players not knowing, most of the owners not knowing. Was it Maldini at AC Milan said he didn't ken, he's the chief executive. It's not a case of, it was just shockingly marketed. I mean, they could have came out a completely different way and maybe got a slightly better reaction, but I'm really not surprised how the fans reacted to it. Will it happen? Obviously not under the current format, but aye, it will. I mean, your third question there. Nope, that was my camera fall. Your third question there about the youth aspect of it. If you take the top 6 teams out of the Premier League, you're then left with a league obviously without these teams. It probably gives the teams within that league a better chance to get some youth in. They might have to because probably won't be as much money in the league. So I do think it would probably the problem with the Premier League is the amount of money people have got. They're not actually willing to put youth in there. So I think that'd probably help youth in a way.
And James, over to you for those questions.
I think the fans were justified. The points have been covered about you can't bring such dramatic change without bringing the fans along with you. And to presume that they'll just blindly follow was a bit arrogant. So I do think fans were rightly angered. Will it happen? I think it will, which is disappointing. It's not the way that football should be, but money ultimately talks. And with the correct marketing, I can see TV companies getting behind it. And once that has been agreed, then that's the direction of travel. The only way I can see it not happening is if the German model of ownership, where the fans have to have over 50% control of the club. If that happened, I could see fans opposing it because decisions would be made more culturally than it would be business-wise. But I just can't see that type of ownership entering the Premier League. So that's why I would say that I would predict that it's going to happen. On the youth development front, it'd be very little youth development in the Super League until, I don't know, you've lost your first 9 games of the season and you know you're not going to get relegated. So you can play the youth players. But except from that, you're going to want to finish as high as possible to get the most money. The gap that I read, that first place was going to get 300 odd million pounds and bottom place was going to get 100 odd million pounds. So that's still quite a bit of money between that. So you'd be competing to try and get at the highest place to get.
So Spurs getting 100 million.
Yeah, every year.
Go. That's the stadium paid off in 10 years' time. But yeah, it's the notion. It's just crazy money. I think you get £3 million for winning the Scottish Premier League, just for comparison. So the little incentive for youth development, and I would actually see the Premier League becoming more competitive, which would mean that youth development would not be the priority for some of these teams.
I think we're all agreeing on the fan aspect of it, and as I said, the points have been covered. From my point of view, I didn't expect it to be as big as it was, but that was just my opinion. It was a good thing to see fans stand together. In terms of will it happen, I hope not. Still, I think, as Shahan said, it's definitely not done. There's no chance it's done. It's going to go on and be discussed. With James saying about the German model of ownership, I think it was Gary Neville that said on the game on Tuesday, when it announced that the clubs were starting to pull out, that he was thinking about different things that the FA could do, and that was one of his suggestions, was that, and I would be all for that. As a fan, seeing how the German game is run, how low ticket prices are, how high, the games are attended every time, and as much as people don't agree, because Munich run away with the league majority of the time, it is a very competitive league from the bottom, in terms of the bottom half competitive. Fight for European positions is competitive. So I do think that model could work, but again, with what James was saying, would the big American owners, and specifically with their franchise ways, but they won't let it happen. But that's again a big thing that we've seen this week. Is I think it's been Arsenal fans have been quite outspoken about their wanting Kroenke out as quick as possible. So I do think that's a potential. Will it be discussed? I hope so. Will it happen? I don't know. Youth development, we've already said, I don't think we're getting 300 million in a season. You're not going to focus on your youth. And if you do have your youth, it's going to be similar to what we've said. before about Livingston, and they'll be picking up, the Premier League teams will be picking up the Deadwood sort of thing. But it's funny that, James, you mentioned that about the Scottish Premiership prize money, because that takes us nicely onto our second topic of this episode, and that is the possibility of a British Super League that's been put after the European one, funnily enough. Martin, I believe you're going to talk us through this one.
Yeah, I did think it was extremely weird how quickly behind the ESL sort of offer went through and was kind of condemned by everybody. That it was very, very quickly after it was what we'll do is we'll take Celtic and Rangers, put them in England, and cut it to an 18-team Premier League. I thought it was weird how quickly it happened. I would be completely for it though, because I just want Celtic and Rangers out of Scottish football. They have changed the sort of landscape of Scotland football. Yes, they brought money in to extent, but a lot of the percentages of money do go to Celtic and Rangers, especially with the way the broadcast stuff and everything's set up. I wanted to see what everybody else's thoughts on that. So I suppose we better start with a Celtic fan. James.
His face has been a picture of your whole start there.
Yes.
It usually is when Martin's speaking. A British Super League. It's one that conflicts me because it's closer to the historical roots of football than the European Super League, but I think I'm against it. And the reason I would be against it is not because Celtic wouldn't win trophies. I do think Celtic would be able to compete in England once the money came in, because I do think Celtic are a very investable club for branding and marketing. But I just think if you go down to a British Super League, there's going to be then calls for a British national team. What's the point of having a Scottish FA and the Scottish leaguing system if as soon as you become too big for the Scottish League, you have to join England? I think that sets out a very bad message. And I do think if you want to protect Scottish football, you need to keep your biggest assets in Scottish football. And that's why I would say, let's keep Celtic and Rangers in the SPFL, but scrap the English and Scottish League Cups and have a British Cup. That's my suggestion.
Shahan, what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, didn't they try to do this like years ago and it didn't work?
Well, they did do it years ago. Not that it didn't work. There was a lot of fighting. It was the 80s.
Yeah, well, I don't actually know where I stand with it, because I think it would be interesting to see how Rangers and Celtic fare down with the big boys, I guess, or the bigger boys. But not that we're not supposed to talk about politics in this chat. But what happens, say, if the Scottish referendum goes through? If it happens, Scotland decides to be independent. What happens then with the British Super League if Rangers and Celtic are down there?
Yeah, passport for an away game.
So I mean,
Gavin. Sorry, Shahan, you.
On like a way far future, if something like that happens, I don't think it'll work anyway. So what's the point of pushing that when it might not work later on? I think they've got to look at all the aspects, even political ones.
So you don't think politically the English government would want, the British government would want it to happen to have a better chance of there not being an independence referendum? I went all political again. Sorry, Gab, why you go? Your opinion on this?
I'm got to be in the same camp as James and say I'm against it. I don't think it would work. And no, Martin, don't look at me like that, right? I can see the way looking at me. Sitting there going, but Gavin, you can get rid of Celtic and Rangers, and it means you've got more chance of winning something. You may actually make it there. But the thing is, unlike Hibs, up until yesterday, we've been at Hampden for the past 2 seasons.
Well,
you know what I mean? And, you were at Hampden at the semi-final, but you lost to a magical team across the other end of Edinburgh to you. but I don't.
Magical.
From my point of view, as much as Celtic and Rangers do my head in, and how big-headed the majority of their fans are, I'm not saying you are, James, just before you take offence, just in case you take offence, but how
Bruce has
big-headed
got a
the
rather
fans
big
are.
head.
Yes, they go on and on about things again, constantly. They do get on your nerves a little bit. However, I enjoy the odd game when you beat them. That
Like-
feeling of right, we've toppled a big team here. We now
Like-
need to use this and push
Well,
on.
like
The
today with
motivation that it gives you.
Like St Johnston just got.
Like St Johnson just got. The fact that a keeper can score the winner goal, that's going to give St Johnson a massive confidence boost, and they're going to want to use that to drive them to the end of the season. Now, it is a thing that no matter who you are, you always big yourself up for the bigger games. As a Hearts fan, the 4 biggest games that I enjoy playing the Old Firm, obviously the Derby, and Aberdeen, because you know for a fact Aberdeen fans are going to have a brilliant atmosphere at Tynecastle. Likewise with the Old Firm, and Hibs is just it's a derby. You know what I mean? You're going to enjoy it. Even games that we lose from a Hearts fan, even games that we lose against those 4 teams, I still enjoy going to the games for the atmosphere and for the thrill. It makes you feel like it's back to what a football fan is, the roots of a football fan, and the buzz, the adrenaline of going to the games because you know it's going to be a big game.
Does that not like bring like smaller clubs revenue as well when they do go and play like Rangers and Celtic as well with most seats filling up essentially?
Yeah,
With away fans
between gate receipts and between like you're always going to have more people coming, so it means you're probably going to sell more merchandise. Then obviously you've got the TV income. I do think, with James saying in the previous topic about the prize money, that needs to be addressed. We need to up and put a lot more focus on the prize money, but that comes into sponsorship more than anything else, I think.
I think there's a few things I've seen on social media. The most obvious ones that I saw by fans were saying Celtic and Rangers wouldn't cut in the Premiership. I think that has to be tabooed straight away. I think Celtic and Rangers, with their current team, would, yes, be bottom half of the table, maybe sort of 10th, 11th, 12th. They'd be sort of around about there. But let's face it, as soon as you go to the Premier League, you get everything that goes with it. And it turns into not just what you've got at the time and what you can build on, but who will invest in you, what. And Celtic and Rangers, both of them, globally, are bigger clubs than 3/4 of the Premier League. I'd quite easily say that 3/4 of the Premier League, Celtic and Rangers are as big as globally on a market sense. They wouldn't play them at football with the team they've got, but I think they would sort of compete at sort of challenging for Champions League to get in the sort of 6th top 4. James is sort of bobbing his head a bit like he's
like Churchill,
a wibble wobble. Winston Churchill. What do you think, James, on the marketing scale and how Celtic and Rangers would do actually in the league?
I think Celtic would do better than Rangers, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Celtic fan. I'm saying it because in 2012, nobody invested in Rangers.
I take that point, actually. The year that Rangers died.
You said it. But the club was needing financial help to survive administration like Hearts did. And nobody turned up. The fans walked away.
Same thing happened with Celtic in the 90s at some point. And somebody came in.
Fergus McCann came in.
Just before we go on, are you saying, and I want to get these words out of your mouth, so I'm not putting them into your mouth, are you saying Hearts are a bigger team than Rangers because Hearts got the investment?
Well, Rangers have won an SPFL in the past 10 years.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking about what you said.
So one trophy in the last 10 years.
And the Petrofac Cup.
We've won a couple of Scottish Cups.
I think marketing-wise, I would say Rangers are bigger than Hearts. So There you
But
go.
investment-wise, Hearts have got the Hearts had the backer.
At the backer,
Thanks, mate.
yes.
Let's
that
face
as a
it, most of your biggest teams, the same thing happened with Hibs. Tom Palmer came in with a hands-off Hibs campaign in the 1990s. A lot of teams have sort of went through it. It's not an odd thing for a football team to go through. Unfortunately, it was just nobody backed Rangers at that. But I really wish Bruce was here for this.
I know.
But drifting off point slightly. So I do think Rangers and Celtic would stay in the league. I don't think they'd get relegated anyway. I think they would over the course of time. I don't think it's fair for Rangers and Celtic to go straight in the Premier League. If they were doing it, they would have to go to the English second division and play some sort of either get entered to the second division or entered into the conference and work their way up like Salford are doing. I don't think that a team has any divine right to jump in above other teams.
Yeah.
So I think it's a non-starter because of that, and because they're talking about it being an 18-team league. So with that, you've got to take, obviously, the 18 teams, 2 of them are Celtic and Rangers, so you've got 16 teams in the Premiership. So you've got to take out 4 teams. So the whole Premiership gets to vote on this, and any teams that think they may be anywhere near those 4 teams to get cut aren't going to vote for it.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a non-starter, but I would still love for it to happen. Mainly because Celtic and Rangers, over the course of, I don't know, the 20 years at least that I've sort of paid attention to, have been trying to find a way out of Scottish football. They have been in discussions with European leagues 10, 15 years ago. I saw an article about Celtic and Rangers joining the French league. I've seen articles about everything else. If they are going to consistently look at other avenues to not be in Scotland, fuck them and let them go. Just anywhere. Anybody that will take them. And I wish at some point the Scottish FA would actually grow a backbone and have a system of, look, if you're looking to play somewhere else, just go. Because that's
Martin,
what they're wanting to do. They've got revenue that they can make elsewhere. They want to do that. So piss
Martin,
off and do it.
See, to counteract your argument about the whole,
Yes.
if they go away, we're going to win something sort of thing. If you look at this season in particular, and how competitive this season has been, look at the domestic cups. James, are you in any domestic cup finals this season?
No.
Are Rangers in any domestic cup finals this season?
No.
Right.
There's a slight difference between the
It's
No,
a more competitive season. Teams are improving. And
yes,
this is, I feel as well, a big thing about this season is tactics are improving within Scottish football. I've seen a big difference in terms of tactical side of things.
yes.
So there is that potential there, as I said, if there can be some form of investment into it, that the prize money, the prize pool gets increased slightly. Bigger transfers come into it. Of course, Rangers and Celtic have done it. Celtic mainly in the last few years have managed to get a brilliant profit over with some transfers compared to the net spend. James mentioned it before about getting money for players that they're lucky to make as much money. Exactly. Or as James said, I think a couple weeks ago about Kimiala. It's making money off of players. You know, Hearts did it with Aaron Hickey. Brilliant player, brilliant potential. Not nowhere near as potential in his peak, but managed to make a little money from it. Had to give some of it Celtic arseholes. But this is a good time for Scottish football.
And how much money he's making off Harry Cochrane?
Oh, none. I don't think.
So
the boy doesn't want to sign a contract. I mean, it's not for us to make money from them.
I do think I agree with Gavin that you look at a couple of teams within the Premier League, the Scottish Premier League, even teams. I mean, you look at the strike force that Dundee United have got now with McNulty and Shanklin, 2 extremely good strike. They haven't got the rest of the team to follow that up, but they are sort of getting there. St Johnstone are an extremely good team that have been building for a while. There is a few good teams that are consistently building. Hibs are sort of getting a bit more about themselves, still needing finishing touches.
And
Hearts are now on a winning streak. Usually a team sort of after promotion will then sort of have the first 6 months of the next season pushing into the top half of the season. You've got other teams that are actually doing pretty well. Aberdeen are going to have a new manager force. You've got Hamilton, who are dug shit. You've got Kilmarnock. I mean, they got Kyle Lafferty, and he scored a hat trick in the first half last year. They'll probably go down, I would think, because they are pretty pish. But
from a Hearts fan who's been watching, making sure he watches a lot of the games this season, which obviously has been hard because we've been in the Championship, but the Championship has got such a competitive league in terms of the top half of the table. It's getting a lot similar to the English Championship, where it's hard to get out of that league now. You're in it.
Yeah.
Teams like Dundee have done well. Dunfermline, Raith Rovers are up there.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole Scottish League reform that was spoken about at the back end of last season is looking. I think it would work a lot better now that we've seen how competitive these teams can be. Your Dunfermline, your Dundees, your Raith Rovers, they could beat Hamilton, they could beat St Johnstone, Kilmarnock.
Yeah. With that then, Gav, do you think Scottish football needs the Old Firm?
I think they need the Old Firm in terms of for marketing, gate receipts, and as well the money-wise is a big thing of it, as James said. Money talks at the end of the day, and if you take them away, the money goes as well.
I would disagree with the gate receipt side of things. I think I'll concentrate on my side of things because I'm a Hibs fan. If you look at Marvin Bartley's picture of him taking a selfie up Leith Walk and the crowdy fans that are there celebrating a trophy win, same thing happens with Hearts on Gorgie Road, same thing happened at St Johnstone, and things like that will drive more fans into stadiums when they're winning things. So you will fill stadiums. But that's the thing, your away support. Hibs always travel in numbers. Hearts always travel in numbers. There is big teams that will. Aberdeen, for the length they have to travel, they still travel in numbers. Now, if you look at teams like St Johnstone, St Johnstone are actually a good team. They've been building for a long time. If they can start winning things, which they're on for a cup double this year. If they start winning things, the youth get involved, and you get more fans going to the game. Maybe takes 5-10 years, but they need to start looking at bigger stadiums at that point.
But then they could just have like a really I don't know, a freak season this year, win 2 cups, and then just literally go back to the normal state.
They've been building for a while. I think you look at your average goals and things like that. They're a good team. They've been slowly building. They've always been about the top end of the bottom end of the top 6. So my biggest thing is getting rid of Celtic Rangers, mainly because they don't want to be there. They do take a lot of the money from Scottish football. When you look at the first and second place, they make a lot more decisions than the smaller teams make, and we bend over backwards to please them. Scottish football had the chance to make a lot of money when Setanta folded. That must have been about 10-15 years ago, when we had a TV broadcasting deal with Setanta. It folded, and that was our chance to sort of turn into a bigger league. So I'll put it to everybody with this. Do you think it will happen? And like James says, James has mentioned a British Cup sort of version. And if you think that'll happen, to coincide with it, Shahan, you've not really said that much on this. So I'll let you start with this.
I think it should happen. The fact that I think it is going to happen, I don't think it's going to happen. I just want to see what, if it does happen, like how Rangers and Celtic would kind of perform under that kind of pressure of being in the Premier League and things like that. But if I think it's going to happen, I don't think it's going to happen. I
What
just think
about
there's just too much. There'll be too much opposition. Like you mentioned, there's going to be like 16 teams, or 4 teams are going to get dropped from Premier League. They're all going to vote against it. By the time it kind of comes down to all of that, I don't think it'll end up happening. So,
what do you think about a British League Cup or an Old Fairs Cup as it used to be?
I mean, it's a good idea, but I don't think scrapping then the other cups should be a thing either. I think they should just maybe invent a new kind of cup, British Super Cup or British Cup, and play in that as well.
So an extra cup, more games to play.
Why not? More income coming in.
Gavin, feelings on everything?
I don't want it to happen. I don't think it'll happen. In terms of the British Cup, as you're putting it, I think it's quite a similar, the way it's been put across as the Iron Brew Challenge Cup, whatever it was called, with you had the Welsh teams in the lower league. I'm sure they competed with the lower leagues of Scottish football.
Yep.
I feel like something like that could work in principle, but again, it comes down to, at the end of the day, you're going to expect your Premier League teams to win that. It's going to just turn into another Giants trophy down there unless you exclude them from it. And then is that, well, where are you putting Scotland and Scottish football in the pyramid system in terms of England? Just saying, did they go match up with Championship, match up with League One at the ability level? So I think it's a good idea in principle, but there'd be a lot of things to work out before it was anything.
James?
I don't want it to happen. I don't think it will happen. But I think a British Cup is a good idea. I think, could you imagine if Man U or a Chelsea, even a Spurs, were drawn with East Stirlingshire, at home?
Another trophy for Spurs to lose, James.
It would be another trophy for Spurs to lose, but I think that in itself would give money to a lot of teams in Scotland. The TV revenue would be quite interested in that. I would go even a step further and say that it should be on the British Broadcasting Company who pay for it, make it all things British, and that would be free for people to watch as long as they paid a TV license.
All games,
which I would agree with.
Yes, all games.
Again, I'll sort of go back to my original thing for the first topic. Paying subscription money for football is wrong. We shouldn't have to do it. I'd be quite happy to do it on the BBC, where we already have to pay an unfair TV license. So, I would say the first thing with Celtic and Rangers joining the English League, should they? Probably not. As much as I want them to, and I do, I can't see it. I can't see it being an idea that will get off the ground. Mainly because the teams in the lower half of the English League that would say no to it straight away because it doesn't benefit them. Let's face it. Every time there's a vote on something, you're only going to vote for the things that's going to benefit you personally. And I can't see the bottom half of the English League voting for it at all. What was the other questions? It was
Super Cup League. Sorry, Cup Super Cup.
The Cup, right? So the British Cup. I don't know if you are on the same boat, but see pre-season games. We usually in Scotland you get pre-season games, and quite a lot of time they're against English Premiership teams. And I've seen Scotland play. Hibs play Everton. Wayne Rooney actually played. Wayne Rooney scored while he was like 16 against Hibs. 2-2 draw. Played against Blackburn after they won the league in England. Beat them. And there's an extra. I might play watching a Hibs Sunderland game. So, and that's just pre-season friendlies. And yes, I would like there to be a competition where we can make it a bit more competitive as opposed to a friendly, and play against English teams. I do think it's a weird one because it's obviously a different country. It's a different association. There'd be no difference in us doing it with England than doing it with France, apart from us obviously not having to take a plane to or train to a different country. It is amalgamating two different countries to play in a league or a cup. That's my thoughts on it.
Great. Well, in this absolutely hectic week of football, it's remarkable that we haven't even mentioned the name of Jose Mourinho yet. Sacked by Tottenham in the same week as Tottenham had the opportunity to win their first trophy in 13 years and ultimately did not win it. But very quickly, just going round the panel in 20, 30 seconds, was it correct for Tottenham to sack Mourinho, who's won numerous trophies, the week that they have a cup final, to appoint Ryan Mason to lead them in the cup final for his second game as manager? So I'll go to Shahan first. Mourinho or Mason?
It's a question of like, what if, like, so if Mourinho was still there, could they have won it? Nobody knows. Nobody would ever know.
Was it correct for Tottenham to sack Mourinho to appoint Mason?
No. I think they should have kept him for this task that they actually brought him in for, and actually give him a chance to try to win something, which he was brought in for. They just never gave him that chance, and I think it was a bit rushed on their behalf. I think because it was like they thought they were going to get a lot of this money coming in, which would help them pay off Mourinho as well. Didn't happen, obviously. So yeah, no, I was going to just kind of round up and say, yeah, I think it was wrong for them to sack Mourinho. It should be Mourinho.
Martin?
Completely mental. Why would, see if you had a one-off game that you had to win, out of all the managers in all the world that you would pick to win one-off game, you would pick Mourinho. Because obviously Guardiola's a completely tactic thing where you've got to play a style of football, and that takes months and years to actually learn and do. Mourinho's tactics aren't like that, and Mourinho's tactics are game-to-game basis and changing to that. And if I was to pick one manager from any manager in the world to beat Pep Guardiola and Man City, one of the best teams in the world, and you'd have to go with Mourinho. And getting rid of him 6 days before a cup final, getting rid of any manager 6 days before a cup final is mental. There has to be more to it. It has to be a training ground fallout or something like that, because it is a complete... Either that or Tottenham actually don't want to win trophies. That might be it. It's a crazy situation to be in. And I know that you're going to automatically put a certain Brighton manager's name in the hat for... there's no way you're going to get through this without naming Potter. But I also reckon Wolves manager, although they got humped today, Espirito Santos would be a good shout to take over that role.
Gavin?
Yeah. Well, like
what he said
should not have happened. Pretty much, yeah, what he said. It's stupid. To be completely, it's stupid. Especially someone who's got a track record of winning things before a final. The two things that I've heard is that Levy was getting really concerned that his main target, Nagelsmann, was getting poached by Bayern. So he's like, oh no, I need to make a move here. The second thing I heard is that if Mourinho actually won something or finished in the top 7 or something, his compensation package was higher. So they're like, well, we didn't want to risk having to pay him more than we have to. We'll get rid of him now just in case. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And as Martin said, a one-off game, you're going to pick him. It's the best chance that they had of winning something, and they fucked it. They spursed it.
The year ended in one.
The new term of fucking something up. They spursed it up there with They Hibs it.
You've got a different sense of that than I've got.
I think I agree. Not the best time to sack him, but at the same time, it was happening. It was pretty inevitable that Mourinho was leaving.
One game though, surely you keep him for one
Oh yeah,
game.
yeah.
2 games.
6 days. 6 days. What? 6 days.
No, I agree, particularly the way that Tottenham played today. Unexpected goals of 0.04. Mourinho
Impressive.
even reached higher than that.
Yeah.
So yes, it was. Yeah, silly decision. Yeah, I think Graham Potter. There you go. Take a jerk,
Who
Martin.
was that?
He should definitely be in the mix. Yeah, I'm not in favour of the Wolves manager. No, counter-attacking football. It would just be very similar to Mourinho. That's not the Spurs way. If we're not going to win
The
anything,
Spurs
The
way,
Spurs
not
way is
losing.
yeah, if we're not going to win anything, I at least want to play attractive football.
I hear Neil Lennon's available.
That joke was cracked last week when we were talking about.
If you had been here, you would have heard it, Gav.
Yes,
He's still available though. The
So-
fact's not changed.
Is that Nagelsmann guy? Is he not available anymore now?
he
Bayern
is,
got him.
but
Oh.
we're not going to get him.
What? Too
I'd be-
expensive?
Munich will get him.
Just think if you had the opportunity to manage Tottenham or Bayern Munich, who would you pick?
Oh, Tottenham definitely.
I mean, I could be that
You've
hopeful
got more
thinker.
chance.
I could be that hopeful thinker and be like, yes, I could turn this team around, win something with them, and I'll be a legend at the end of it.
You've got more
Which
chance of
way-
making history at Tottenham.
Yeah, but you could
Exactly.
say the same thing for any team in the world. You could go to Clyde
Hibs.
and say that I could take Clyde and win something with them and be a legend. Ken,
Or you could do a Craig White, buy a team for £1 and make them history. But but on that note, thank you for watching this episode of the Sports Hub podcast. Let us know your thoughts on our European Super League as well as the British Super League. It's been very controversial, so yeah, I hope that we managed to cover all the points. It could have went on for way longer, but yes, make sure to let us know your comments and follow us, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
It's a Sport Court podcast.